Civil Review Petition 312 of 2024.
May it please the court. I'll go directly to the case of Peer Sabir Shah. This is PLD 1995, Supreme Court, page 66. And I refer to this case to support the submission that when seized of a matter in the PLD 1995, Supreme Court, 66.
Relevant?
Isme, my lords will see there are judgments written by at least 7 of their lordships, and I would want to read a few lines from each, but the most relevant I would submit is the judgment written by his lordship, as he then was, Salim Akhtar, which has then been approved and endorsed in Dosani Travels. So this becomes the law, and Dosani Travels in turn has been relied upon by your lordships in the majority judgment. So this is the line. Peer Sabir Shah, Salim Akhtar Saab's judgment, approved, endorsed in Dosani Travels, and then Dosani Travels has been relied upon in the 8-member bench judgment of this court. Now kindly see what Salim Akhtar Saab had held with respect to the interaction between Article 175.2 and 187 and 184.3. I go to page 189 of the report.
Paragraph?
If I could just read very briefly paragraph 8. Mr. Sharifuddin Pirzada, Learned Counsel for the respondents, referred to Humayun Saifullah Khan versus Federation, PLD 94, Supreme Court 595, wherein a reference filed under Section 8B of the Act, this is the Political Parties Act of 1962, before the Election Commission. The said provision was challenged as ultra vires the Constitution. An issue was framed, and then the issue was whether this court, sitting in appeal under Section 8B, could have struck down Section 8B. I go on to the next paragraph, 9. The Learned Counsel for the respondents then contended that while hearing appeal, this court is not restricted within the bounds of the law from which the appeal has arisen, but being the apex court is competent to decide vires of the Act. It was further contended that in any event, Article 187 of the Constitution confers power to decide all questions to do complete justice between the parties. The Learned Counsel referred to Waris Mia's case, PLD 1957, Supreme Court 157, in which question of vires of the Foreign Exchange Act was raised for the first time and entertained by it. Reference was also made to Noura and another versus the state, PLD 73, Supreme Court 469, and Zuhur Ali versus the state, PLD 77, Supreme Court 273, in support of the argument. Reliance was also placed on Muhammad Ashraf and another versus the state, PLD 81, Supreme Court 265, and so on. I skip, sir. I now go to the last 3 or 4 lines of para 9. In response to Mr. Pirzada's arguments, this is what the counsel for the other side had to say. Mr. Khalid Anwar has pointed out that after Chaudhry Zuhur Ali's case, PLD 77, Supreme Court 273, at page 190, the paragraph, the lines just before the paragraph number 10. So these are the last 4 lines of paragraph 9 on page 190. Mr. Khalid Anwar has pointed out that after Chaudhry Zuhur Ali's case, PLD 77, Supreme Court 273, Article 187 was amended, and it was made subject to Article 175.2, which provides that no court shall have any jurisdiction save as is and may be conferred on it by the Constitution or by or under any law. Now, after recording both arguments of the 2 sides, this is what his lordship holds. Para 10. The Supreme Court is the apex court. It is the highest and the ultimate court under the Constitution. In my view, the inherent, now I underline that, his lordship recognizes an inherent power. In my view, the inherent and plenary power of this court, which is vested in it by virtue of being the ultimate court, it has the power to do complete justice without in any manner infringing or violating any provision of law. So this is the 175.2 constraint. It can't infringe a law, it can't violate a law, but other than that, it has plenary inherent powers. It does not need to point to a legal provision to say this is why we are doing this particularly when a constitutional deviation is being cleansed, as I'll come to the case law later. So it has inherent and plenary power, subject only to that it should not violate any given law. While doing complete justice, this court would not cross the frontiers of the Constitution and law. The term complete justice is not capable of definition with exactitude. It is a term covering variety of cases and reliefs which this court can mold and grant depending upon the facts and circumstances of the case. While doing complete justice, formalities and technicalities should not fetter its power. It can grant ancillary relief, mold the relief within its jurisdiction depending on the facts and circumstances of the case, take additional evidence, and in appropriate cases even subsequent events may be taken into consideration. Ronald Rotunda, in his book Treatise on Constitutional Case Law, A Case Substance, 2nd edition, volume 2, page 90, has stated that the Supreme Court is an essence of a continual constitutional convention. The jurisdiction and the power conferred on the Supreme Court does empower it to do complete justice by looking to the facts, circumstances, and the law governing a particular case. Article 187 does not confer any jurisdiction. It recognizes inherent power of an apex court to do complete jurisdiction and issue orders and directions to achieve that end. Inherent justification is vested in the High Court and subordinate courts while dealing with civil and criminal cases by virtue of provisions of law. The inherent jurisdiction of this court to do complete justice cannot be curtailed by law, as it may adversely affect the independence of judiciary and the fundamental right of persons to have free access to the court for achieving complete justice. This enunciation may evoke a controversy that as Article 175(2) restricts Article 187, it will create conflict between the two. There is no conflict, and both the articles can be read together. The conflict in the provisions of the Constitution should not be assumed, and if apparently there seems to be any, it has to be interpreted in a harmonious manner by which both the provisions may coexist. One provision of the Constitution cannot be struck down being in conflict with the other provision of the Constitution. They have to live together, exist together, and operate together. Therefore, while interpreting jurisdiction and power of the superior courts, one should look to the fundamental rights conferred and the duty cast upon them under the Constitution. I underline this. Ultimately, it is this court that has to enforce fundamental rights. This court derives its ultimate jurisdiction from the duty to enforce fundamental rights. That is a duty vested in this court by the Constitution. For this, we don't have to travel beyond the Constitution. I read on. A provision like Article 187 cannot be read in isolation, but has to be interpreted and read harmoniously with other provisions of the Constitution. In my humble view, this court, while hearing appeal under a statute, has the jurisdiction and power to decide the question of vires of the statute under which the appeal has arisen, and can even invoke Article 184(3) in appropriate cases.
How in this case 187 was applicable, how it was applied, and how...
The Lord has applied it. Let me just read a few cases, sir. We are short of time. I'll answer all these questions. How 187 has been applied in this case. The reference to Dosani, that's the main point I'm going to argue.
ये तो वैसे भी जो है उनका एडिशनल नोट है ना, आप दोसानी पढ़ेंगे
जी, अब आप दोसानी पे आज दोसानी has endorsed this.
आपने स्टार्ट किया पैरा 8 से
जी.
पैरा 8 में आया बिटवीन द पार्टीज 187
नहीं सर, नहीं, जो 184(3) में वो आ गए ना, सर मैं अर्ज करता हूँ मुझे थोड़ा सा आगे पढ़ने दें.
इसमें यही आपने खुद पढ़ा है.
सर ठीक हो गया सर, जहाँ पे but then ultimately they say we can even invoke 184(3). So when they invoke 184(3), then the scope becomes much wider.
Whether Election Commission was party in it?
In which case, sir?
In the case before the High Court and the case before us.
Yes, yes.
So the parties were there.
Yes, no, yes, the Election Commission is party.